Imagine spending 20 years building the greatest empire the ancient world had ever seen. You expanded trade routes. You constructed monuments so enormous they still stand today, 3,500 years later. You led military campaigns that brought your enemies to their knees. Your people loved you. Your gods favored you. Historians who lived centuries after your death called your reign one of the most prosperous in all of Egypt's long, brutal history. And then someone tried to make sure no one would ever know your name. They chiseled your face off every wall. They scratched your name from every monument. They toppled your statues, smashed them into pieces, and buried them in pits. They wanted you erased, completely, permanently, like you never existed. The terrifying part, it almost worked. This is the story of Hatshepsut, the woman who became Pharaoh of Egypt, ruled with more power than most men ever dreamed of, and was then systematically deleted from history. And the reason why she was erased is the part that will genuinely surprise you. To understand how remarkable Hatshepsut was, you first need to understand the world she was born into. Ancient Egypt was one of the most rigid societies on the planet. Everything had its place. The Nile flooded on schedule. The gods demanded their rituals. And the Pharaoh, the living god on earth, the bridge between the human world and the divine, was always a man. That was not a suggestion. It was the cosmic order. Hatshepsut was born around 1507 BC, the daughter of Pharaoh Thutmose I, one of Egypt's greatest warrior kings. She grew up in the palace, educated, sharp, politically aware in a way that most people in history never get the chance to be. She married her half-brother Thutmose II, as was custom, and became his great royal wife, the highest title a woman could hold. She was queen, powerful, yes, but a queen. Then her husband died young. The heir to the throne was a boy, Thutmose III, but he was too young to rule. So Hatshepsut stepped in as regent. She would govern in his name until he came of age. This was not unusual. Women had done it before. It was a temporary arrangement, except Hatshepsut looked at the throne and made a decision that shook Egypt to its foundations. She didn't step aside. Around 1473 BC, roughly 7 years into her regency, Hatshepsut declared herself pharaoh, not queen, not regent, pharaoh. She put on the double crown. She wore the ceremonial false beard. She had herself depicted in statues and carvings as a male king, broad-shouldered, powerful, authoritative. She didn't pretend to be a man. Her inscriptions often used feminine language, but she claimed every symbol of male kingship, because in Egypt, those symbols weren't just fashion, they were divine authority, and what's remarkable is that it worked. Here's where history gets genuinely fascinating, because Hatshepsut didn't just hold power, she used it brilliantly. Her most celebrated achievement was the trade expedition to Punt, a mysterious, almost mythical land that Egyptians called God's Land, likely located somewhere in East Africa or the Arabian Peninsula. Egypt hadn't successfully reached Punt in over a generation. Trade routes had gone cold. The riches had dried up. Hatshepsut sent 5 massive ships. They came back loaded with myrrh trees, ebony, ivory, gold, animal skins, and live animals, including baboons, which the Egyptians absolutely adored. She had the entire expedition carved in extraordinary detail on the walls of her mortuary temple. It was her way of saying, look what I did, look what my Egypt can do. Then there was Deir el-Bahari, her mortuary temple, cut directly into the cliffs at Luxor. Even today, standing in front of it, your jaw drops. 3 colonnaded terraces rising into the rock face. It's elegant, mathematical, and breathtaking. It inspired temple architecture for generations. She also erected 4 obelisks at Karnak, the great temple complex at Thebes. 2 of them still stand. At 29 meters tall, they were the largest in the world at the time. She had them sheathed in electrum, a gold-silver alloy, so that at dawn, when the sun hit them, they blazed like pillars of light visible for miles. She wasn't just ruling. She was performing rule in the grandest possible way. And critically, Thutmose III didn't disappear during all this. He was still there, still holding his title, still being trained as a military commander. Hatshepsut didn't lock him away. She ruled alongside him. For 20 years, Egypt had 2 pharaohs, and the evidence suggests it functioned. There were no civil wars, no coups, no signs of internal collapse. By almost every measure, Hatshepsut's Egypt was thriving. Hatshepsut died around 1458 BC. The cause is unknown. Possibly cancer, possibly an infection. She was given a royal burial. Her legacy, on the surface, seemed secure. And then, about 20 years after her death, someone started destroying her. Across Egypt, workers went to work with chisels. Her face was hacked off temple walls. Her name was cut out of inscriptions and replaced sometimes with Thutmose I, sometimes with Thutmose II, sometimes with Thutmose III himself. Her statues were dragged out and smashed, the pieces buried in pits near her temple, almost like someone wanted to hide the evidence, not just destroy it. For a long time, historians assumed they knew exactly who ordered it and why. Thutmose III, the boy she'd displaced, acting out of revenge the moment she was safely dead. It was a clean story. A vindictive stepson finally getting his revenge on the woman who stole his throne, but the evidence doesn't support it. When modern Egyptologists studied the timeline more carefully, they realized the destruction happened late in Thutmose III's reign, closer to the end of his life, not the beginning. If this was personal revenge, why wait decades? The current leading theory is far more interesting. This wasn't about hatred. It was about succession. Thutmose III was old. His son, Amenhotep II, was being prepared to take the throne. And Thutmose III may have been trying to erase the precedent, the dangerous idea that a woman could become pharaoh. Not out of spite for Hatshepsut personally, but out of fear that her existence in the historical record could inspire another woman to try the same thing. He wasn't erasing a person. He was erasing a possibility that is somehow far more chilling. Hatshepsut was lost to history for over 3,000 years. When early Egyptologists found her temple in the 1800s, they were confused. The inscriptions kept switching between male and female pronouns. They couldn't figure out who had built it. It wasn't until the 20th century, largely through the work of Egyptologist Herbert Winlock, who excavated the pit of smashed statues, that her story began to be reconstructed. And in 2007, her mummy was finally identified, found not in a royal tomb, but in a small side chamber, tucked away quietly, as if hidden. She had been there the whole time, waiting. Hatshepsut's story isn't just a lesson about the power of one extraordinary woman. It's a lesson about how deliberately history gets shaped, about who gets remembered, who gets erased, and why. About how threatening a single example of what is possible can feel to those who benefit from people believing it is impossible. They tried to delete her. They failed. And 3,500 years later, we're still saying her name.